I do. I have tons.
You have one. Thank you. Oh, it's good. That's what it is.
How are we doing? A couple minutes
Oh,
yet.
wow, yeah.
We could put a little sign on the door saying please enter this way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a little confused too. I was like, it's a weird little room, isn't it? It's kind of,
Put the orchestra over there.
yeah, well, I did bring the band. So,
I think the last or 2 years ago, this was like a big break room. It's a little relaxation area that seemed like you figured couches.
okay.
People just sitting and breathing.
Really, you guys are maximizing the whole place. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Initial handout. So are you going to say something about if there's a lot? Well, you got it.
Yeah, they should be everywhere. These, it's the same handout for all. Also, kind of scale. What part of my
I don't have too much to say. That's exactly what it is. My wife actually works for Hennepin County too. She's the manager of dispatch.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she just switched from Hennepin County. She was in Hennepin County for 15 years. And
Wow. Do you guys know about that? Oh, that's fine. Well, no, I guess 169 you cut across and go up to Champion.
we're just off 169.
Yeah.
Maybe there's that.
Hey, good morning, mssa. Welcome to our next breakout session, moral positioning, and we're glad that you're here. My name is Gary Sprinzanatic. I'm the Social Service Director of McCall County. And before we get started, I need to ask you, please put your phones to vibrate or silence. If you do get a call, please take it out into the hall. And on the back of your book is where you're going to record your sessions for your CEU. Other than that, unless you have questions, I'm very excited to introduce our speaker this morning. Andre is an energetic presenter, powerful communicator, dynamic teacher, integrates his abilities as an improvisational comedian, large group facilitator, keynote speaker, classroom teacher to captivate the educated audience. The Equal Employment Opportunity Affirmative Action Diversity Coordinator for Anoka County, and he educates the community on state and federal laws, statutes, rules, codes, regulations governing employment. Please help me welcome Andre Cohen, please.
So the bio is a little old. I no longer work for Anoka County. Anyone here from the county, from Anoka County? Love Anoka County. It's where I cut my teeth. They helped me mature in some pretty profound ways. And I see lots of faces that look familiar to me. Please raise your hand if you've been in a session that I've conducted before. All right, great. Like, can tell the same joke. So, thank you so much for coming forward. I really appreciate that. So this is one of the conferences that I really appreciate and enjoy because it's like talking to family, and we get to have conversations as a family and as colleagues that we typically don't get a chance to have in other types of situations. So the fact that most of us work for social service organizations, many of those being government organizations, that's where I feel most comfortable. And so I want to talk to you guys particularly about some things that have been on my mind. And this is an opportunity for us to talk about this idea of moral positioning. And just so you know, the handout that you have will be the same handout for all 3 sessions today. And so if you're going to join us for other sessions, the handouts are there. If you're not going to join us, the presentations for those other sessions are also on my website, which is it's on the front page of the website. It says MSSA presentations. Can't miss it. It's right there. So you can engage that way as well. If there's a need for other handouts, let me know. We'll make sure we get those. So when the RFP came out for presentations, and I was really thinking about the kinds of things that are happening in the world that need attention and that need to be addressed, I went to my old standby. My old standby, I have 2 standbys. One is the Constitution of the United States, and the second is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And so I picked up after watching and participating in the ways that I can, Black Lives Move mature and progress and see the challenges that they were facing, it became my heart became very heavy, particularly when I read the letter from the Birmingham jail. And please don't take this as a critique or an embarrassment or anything like that, but how many of you have read that letter? The letter from the Birmingham? All right. So for those of you who haven't read it, it is a required must-read for anyone who's going to engage in social justice, in therapy and repairing harm for folks, because it really compels us to think about how we interact and why we don't interact. And so when I was reading that, I became very disillusioned. I might even go as far as to say depressed, but not quite depressed, but definitely disillusioned, because what I'm seeing is the same thing played out 50 years later, which lets me know that what? Nothing's changed. Or the things that have changed in such a way they look exactly or similar to how they used to look. And so I wanted to find an answer. And one of the answers that came to me was going back to Dr. King, Reverend Dr. King, and looking at what were some of his methods to make the movement that he was engaged in move forward. We know that Reverend Dr. King was not the first to have this idea of integration. But we do know that there was something compelling about his message that allowed it to survive and others to fail. And so when we talk about this idea of moral positioning, that's and you'll see five circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 gray circles. What I would like for you to do is to put one thing that you value in each of those circles. One thing that you value or that is important to you in each one of those circles. One thing that you value or that is important to you in each one of those circles. It could be a person, significant other, grandchild, favorite niece. It could be a place like Bemidji or Belize. It could be a thing like a motorcycle or a cabin home. It could be a concept like freedom or justice. One thing that you value in each one of those circles, or that is important to you. One thing that you value or that is important to you. Handouts? Great. It looks like most people have 4 at least, if not all 5. What I'd like to do is I'd like to play a game. And the game is very simple. What I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to find 2 people who either agree with what you have or they have. I want them to put their signatures next to the ones that they agree with or that they share, that they have, that you have. All right? So 2 people for each one, and you have 90 seconds to do it starting now. If you can't find people around you, you may have to move. "60 seconds, 60 seconds. "30 seconds. Four, three, two, one. So we have, we just played a little game, and we'll continue to, we'll come back to that game in just a second. We have some moral imperatives for justice. One of the things that we have to recognize about these great United States is that we operate oftentimes in a dichotomy, where opposites are trying to conflict. And it is through the moral imperative that we're able to take it, that we're able to work through that conflict. Right? So some of the moral imperatives for justice stem from that great document that we call the Constitution of the United States. While we were penning that, what also was happening? What also was happening as we were creating this great democracy? What was happening simultaneously at the same time? Yes, the economic system of slavery. And so it was folks like William Wilberforce, John Wesley, who are these great abolitionists who really challenged us to think about that economic system as something that we can do something about. And that it, yes, William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce helped, so Amazing Grace, anyone ever heard that song, right? Can anyone tell me where the song stems from? Yes. Yes. So he had a conviction of the heart that said that what these evil things that I'm doing in order to make money might not necessarily be what I should be doing. And so, William Wilberforce is a contemporary of, I can't remember the gentleman's name who ended up penning that, right? So at any rate, so William Wilberforce and John Wesley was also a great abolitionist. And so we have these moral imperatives. So there is a difference between freedom and liberty. And what is freedom? Because we fight for it. We have it written all over stuff. What is freedom? You're able to do what you want. What is freedom? It is protection. What is freedom? Being free from something or someplace, yes. Be hard. The right to make choices, freedom. What's a lack of fear is freedom? Okay. It's interesting to me that sometimes these two words get used interchangeably as if they are the same thing, when in fact they are not the same thing. I went to the YMCA. They gave me a pass. Anyone ever been to a YMCA? Right. So it's a great community place, great opportunities to work out. They have great facilities. With my pass, I was able to go to the sauna, and I went to the weight room, and I went swimming, all in the same visit. But when I became a member, I had freedom. Because when I was just a visitor, how long could I stay at the YMCA? I had that one time. But when I became a member, I had freedom to do, I can come and go as I please because I'm a member. So what is freedom? Freedom is the status of membership. You get privileges because you are a member. So what is liberty? Liberty says that I have the ability to work out in my local park. And 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. I can swim in the lake, any lake that I want. I can do as many sit-ups, any place that I want, because I have the liberty to do so. So when we talk about this idea of I got ahead of myself. We talk about this idea of freedom versus liberty. What we have to recognize is that there are some people that we do not want to have freedom, because freedom is also a trick. It's a trick. Your car says it will go 120 miles per hour. You will never go 120 miles per hour in these United States. Now, some of you have tried. I know you have. Right? Freedom. It's the status of membership, which is why we don't want certain people to have membership, because then they get these freedoms. And one of the things that we'll talk about is people who've committed felonies. We don't want them to have freedom. We don't want them to serve their time, be rehabilitated, and come back and join us, because we think that freedom is limited. and that everybody can't have freedom. But what I will tell you is that we all have liberty. And it is what we do with that liberty that makes the difference. Social justice should be better defined, because I've heard a lot of people talk about social justice and they have really highfalutin ideas. I was a middle school and high school teacher. My students taught me how to keep it simple. Social justice, betterly defined, is making sure that people have access to everything the law says should. That's social justice. That we do socially. Apply. There's a difference between what's just, what's right, and then what's the law. Slavery was legal, but it was not right. It was not just. I believe that that folks with felonies should be able to come back into our society once we've said that they've paid their debt. And we are the people who get to decide what that is. And then there are just laws and unjust laws. And I think it's interesting. I was preparing for this session, rewatching some of my videos from the Mall of America and I thought it was very interesting that was an opportunity for Minnesota to say what we're about, and I think we did. Can you imagine, when was the last time 1,000 people gathered for anything that wasn't a concert? That was something we should really take under consideration and thought about. Instead, people were concerned about their liberty to get their mocha latte, hot tea, chocanino, mocha, right? So we disrupted that kind of stuff. So, and so that folks have the right to be there. I would believe that they do. I think the proceedings have supported that. And there are these ideas of just and unjust laws, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. So I want to come back to your to the game that we just played, and as you were going around the room and you were having people sign, were there things you saw on other people's papers and you were like, man, why didn't I think of that? I should have wrote that down. What were some of those things that you saw on other people's papers that you didn't write down that you said, I should have wrote that down? Independence, autonomy, health. One more. Yes. You saw books on someone's, right? Yeah. As you were also going around the room, were there things that were either difficult to find someone to sign on, or you didn't find someone to sign on?
Genuineness.
Genuineness. Please raise your hand if you value genuineness, even if it wasn't on your paper. All right, great. Yes, there was a yes.
Honesty.
Honesty. Please raise your hand if you value honesty, even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right, cool. One more, yes.
Mankind.
Mankind. Humankind. If you value humankind, mankind, please raise your hand. Great. So, I forgot to do this, and I need to do a disclaimer. My disclaimer is this. I am a dude. I am a 6'2" African-American male. I'm a cisgender male, which means that I was born male and I behave as a male. What that means for me is I have a particular point of view. And I have some privilege and power that come with those things that I didn't ask for, but I have. And I'm going to try to do my best to use that wisely and effectively. What that also means is that there may be things that I miss because of all of those things that I mentioned just a second ago. So please give me grace, because I I am trying to change my language. But I refer to males and females as him and her, sir and ma'am, and those things. If those things don't fit, please correct me to help our conversation go and to help me grow and learn. But those are the places that I'm coming from, and I'm trying to change and grow as the need arises for that to be so. So I just wanted to put that out there so that we can have a conversation moving forward that is open and honest. Because there will be things that I missed. There are blind spots that I don't have and experiences that I don't know anything about. And I would appreciate it if we could learn those things together. That would be helpful. Okay? So let's go back to the game. So as you were having people sign and you were thinking about those things, was there one more thing that you weren't able to find or was difficult to find someone to sign on? Yes. Music. Please raise your hand if you value music, even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right, cool. So it's the beginning of the session. It's early in the morning. Why would I start with an activity like this? What is the point of this particular activity? To get people engaged.
Self-aware.
To become self-aware. Think about what guides us. To discover commonalities. It is so interesting to me in the work that I do. So I do lots of diversity and inclusion work and work with HR departments and social service agencies to help them become more effective in working with each other and with their clients. And I am always surprised by some of the comments that come out of the session that were true when I was sitting in chairs like yours, listening to presenters. And we spend a lot of time talking about our differences, but we don't spend the same amount or adequate a time talking about how we are more similar. Because it is my belief that we are more similar than we are dissimilar. And that the similarities that we aren't able to find are part of obstacle illusions. They're obstacle illusions, artificial barriers to authentic human relations. And so when we talk about those, we'll talk more about those obstacle illusions in just a second. So it's very clear we were able to find some connections with folks who may or may not necessarily look like us, who may or may not come from the same background, but we were able to find those connections. And why were we able to find those connections with people who may be very different from us, and particularly as we look at our phenotypes? Why were we able to make those connections? Because we don't have to look the same to value the same things or similar things. Why else were you able to make those connections? Because we're all human beings. We're all human beings. And I would argue, and we'll talk about this in just a second, I would argue that all human beings are looking for the same things. But the methods in which we try to achieve those things become different, and those methods we call culture. But I'll come back to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when looking at this moral imperative, I went to look at the work of Dr. King, and Dr. King really inspires me in a number of ways, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But one of the things that I think I used this last year as a part of my presentation, and I thought it was good enough that we needed to do it again. One thing that I do want you to know is that if you're interested in this presentation, it is on my website. It's right on the front page. It says MSSA right across the front, and it's right on the bottom. It looks just like this. But I found this video, and I thought the video was very compelling because, first of all, anyone familiar with T-Pain? Right? So T-Pain is a hip hop artist, and he takes the urban experience and makes these melodic orchestral renditions of the urban experience. And he comes up with wonderful songs with titles like "I'm in love with a stripper," "I'm in love with a bartender." It's actually not that. It's not that great, right? But the kids dig it. And so when I found this video, I thought it was very. It was really good for the work that I was doing because they use this thing called auto tune, so computer animated voice, and so I'm going to show this, and the kids dig it. The kids dig. I don't think they say dig it anymore, but you get the idea. They like it, right? So I'm going to show this video, and as we look at this video, I want you to think about what are some of the moral positioning themes that Dr. King is offering us to think about and as we carry on the work that he started. Make sure volume is up, and it is. And it is plugged in. And volume is going. We got some different ways to be, but it's not what you know. Because I think of my love, and I look over, now see the promised land. I mean, I get going, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not anything, I'm not building anything. I want to see the glory. 1960 students all over the South started sitting in North Town. I knew that they were sitting here and they were really standing up while the best in the free. Taking the whole nation back to those 3 pounds of democracy, which were done made by the founding fathers. And the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We got some different ways to be, but it is not what we know. Because I'm back with my people. And I'm looking over, I see the promised land. Black people can learn around the conscience of this nation, running the being of civil rights. Later that year, August, chapter America, about a dream. We got some different ways to be, but it really matter what you know, because I've been to my people, and I've looked over, I see the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. We got some different ways to be, but it doesn't matter what you know, because I am with my people, and I look over, and I see the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing anything. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. So what were some of the themes that you heard around this idea of moral position? What were some of the themes you heard Dr. King address? What did you hear? Progress and struggle. Did you heard no fear in any man. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You can't ride a person's back unless it's bent. Stood out for her. Hope. That people that stand up get somewhere. He may not get there with them, but he said they're going in the right direction. What exactly did he say? I might not make it, but what? We as a people will get there. Does anyone know what speech this comes out of? Okay, so I want you to, so here's a question. Did Dr. King, Reverend Dr. King, have more than one speech? Yes. More than likely, he had more than one speech. At least 3. Now, I want you to think about all the speeches that you know by title. And if you can only come up with one, we have work to do. We have work to do. This comes out of the mountaintop speech. And the interesting thing about this particular speech, this mountaintop speech, was that this was Dr. King's last speech. So he delivers this Sunday night to a congregation. Monday morning, he wakes up on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, and he catches a sniper's bullet in the neck, and he dies. And so this particular speech, I hold in great admiration, because he obviously knew something about what was going on, because he talked about it. This particular speech is special because it was his last speech, and he said some pretty profound things in this speech that we should take heed of. He was not supposed to give this speech. He wasn't supposed to be in Memphis. As a matter of fact, he had a practice that he would send Coretta Scott King, his wife, when he was out doing demonstrations, when he was out representing people, he would send her fresh flowers. And as a Southern belle, she came to really appreciate those fresh flowers. But on this particular occasion, on this particular trip, on his way down to help sanitation workers in Memphis, he sent her plastic flowers. Now, being a sophisticated woman, she was a little put out by that. And so she called him up and she said, "Martin, what's going on with these plastic flowers?" And being a good wife, what does she do, seeing that her husband is wavering, is doubtful? Okay, honey, okay, yeah, all right. So she decided to change the subject, so she went back to the flowers, and she said, "Martin, so tell me about these flowers." And he said, "Well, I want you to have something to remember me by." And he gives this great speech. And he says these powerful, wonderful things. He says, "I might not make it, but we as a people will." I also think it's interesting that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King would use such epic language. Mountaintop, promised land. Why is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King using words like promised land and mountaintop?
Because it's a biblical reference. He knows Moses got to look from the mountaintop at the promised land, did not get to enter the promised land.
So he's
communicating with the congregation basically that I'm not going to be there.
So he delivers this message about the linkages between the civil rights movement that was their contemporary, at their particular time, and the epic struggle of those folks fighting for freedom to leave a system of bondage in biblical times. And so he's relating the story, and I'm not even sure if he really knows or recognizes, but I think history bears out that he obviously does recognize all the similarities of that particular struggle with the struggle that he was leading. And so at a certain point, he makes these parallels between the exodus out of Egypt and into the promised land being led by, and it's an eerie parallel that Moses led this movement and King led this movement, but neither got to get into the promised land. And so one of the things that I think is really powerful is that right around this time, TBS shows this movie that I grew up on called, featuring Charlton Heston, the Ten Commandments. Anyone sing that on Let my people go out of my cold dead hand. No, that's his NRA speech. So I imagine if there's a part two to the Ten Commandments, that Joshua and Caleb are now the new leaders, and they've led Moses, in my imagination, they've led Moses' people into the promised land. And now Moses' people have a problem, because when Moses was here, they're asking the people to do certain things. So they're asking people to work and fight giants in the harvest and to do all these things. And the people so they bring all the people together, and they make this. That they had to learn to do it themselves and not depend on or rely